Hey, welcome back. Today, we're going to dive into the really fascinating chemistry that's happening inside your gut. We'll look at what's actually going on when you feel that fiery burn of heartburn or that sluggish backup of constipation, and we'll break down the clever science behind the remedies that are designed to fix it all. So let's get right into it.
So I want you to think of your gastrointestinal, or GI tract, as this super sophisticated chemical factory. Seriously, it's this bustling environment where a really precise balance of acids, enzymes, and muscle movements all have to work together perfectly to break down food and absorb nutrients. When it's running smoothly, it's just a marvel of biological engineering.
But what happens when that delicate chemical balance gets thrown completely off? And look, we've all been there. That super uncomfortable feeling of heartburn or the sluggishness of a system that's just not moving. These are all signs that the factory's chemistry is, well, totally out of whack.
All right, let's start with a really common problem. Too much acid. Your stomach absolutely needs hydrochloric acid to do its job, but, sometimes it produces a little too much of a good thing. You know that familiar burning sensation you get after certain foods? Well, it actually has a name, hyperchlorhydria. And this isn't just uncomfortable. If it happens a lot, that chronic excess acid can lead to inflammation, which is called gastritis, and even painful sores in the lining of your stomach or intestine. We call those peptic ulcers.
So how do we fight this fire? Well, luckily, there's a whole class of compounds designed to do just that. Let's talk about the heroes of heartburn relief. The solution here is a class of compounds called antacids. You can think of them like chemical firefighters. They're basically weak bases, and they're designed specifically to neutralize the excess acid in your stomach, bumping the pH level up above 4. And this doesn't just ease the burning feeling. It also deactivates pepsin. That's a digestive enzyme that can cause real damage when acid levels are way too high.
But, and this is important, not all antacids are created equal. They fall into two main categories. First up, you've got the systemic antacids. Think of them as fast and furious. They're water-soluble, they give you almost instant relief, but it doesn't last very long, and crucially, they can be absorbed into your bloodstream, which can actually alter your body's overall pH. Then you have the non-systemic types. These are the slow and steady crew. They're insoluble, they aren't absorbed, and they provide longer-lasting relief without messing with your blood pH.
A classic example of a fast and furious systemic antacid is sodium bicarbonate. And you probably know it by its other name, baking soda. Yep, same stuff. It's a really potent neutralizer, but it's definitely best for short-term use.
Now let's talk about the slow and steady, non-systemic types. A really common example is aluminum hydroxide. It's great for long-acting relief, but it comes with a very well-known side effect. It can, be pretty constipating.
And then you've got magnesium hydroxide, which you might recognize as milk of magnesia. It's another effective non-systemic antacid, but it has the complete opposite side effect. It actually acts as a mild laxative.
So this presents a classic chemistry problem, right? If one antacid makes you constipated and the other has a laxative effect, how do you get the benefit without the unwanted side effects? Well, the solution is just brilliant in its simplicity. You combine them. This is exactly why so many antacids contain both aluminum hydroxide and magnesium hydroxide. It's a super clever formulation designed to balance out those side effects, giving you acid relief without all the intestinal drama.
All right, let's shift gears. We're moving on from too much acid to another really common problem, when things just aren't moving. A traffic jam, if you will, right in your digestive tract.
The medical term, of course, is constipation. It's defined as having difficult or less frequent bowel movements, and that's typically because the feces have become hardened and tough to pass. It can be caused by all sorts of things: diet, certain medications, or even just ignoring the urge to go.
So what's the solution for this digestive gridlock? Well, we turn to a whole other category of agents that are specifically designed to get traffic flowing again.
These agents, which we know as laxatives or cathartics, use four main strategies to clear the jam. First, stimulants work by irritating the intestinal wall to increase contractions. Second, bulk-forming agents absorb water to increase mass. Third, lubricants help ease the passage of everything. And the fourth type, which we're going to focus on, are osmotic laxatives, and they work using a very, very clever principle.
Okay, so osmotic laxatives are basically salts that your intestine just doesn't absorb very well. Because of this, they stay in the bowel and they act like a water magnet. They use the principle of osmosis to pull large amounts of fluid right into the intestine. This hydrates and softens everything up, making it way easier to pass. A classic example of an osmotic laxative is magnesium sulfate. which most of us know as Epsom salt. When you take it with plenty of water, it just stays in the intestine, draws in all that fluid, and pretty efficiently relieves constipation.
So we've looked at the problem of too much acid and the problem of things moving way too slowly. So what are the key takeaways from all this?
Now, before we summarize those first two problems, it's worth quickly mentioning the opposite issue. What happens when things are moving too fast? In cases of diarrhea, a whole different class of agents called adsorbents comes into play. Substances like kaolin, which is a type of clay, basically acts like a sponge, binding to toxins and excess water to help get things back in balance.
Okay, so let's put it all together. For too much acid, you've got antacids like aluminum hydroxide that neutralize the problem, but they can be constipating. For constipation, you have osmotic laxatives like magnesium sulfate that draw in water to get things moving. And for diarrhea, you have absorbents like kaolin that act as a sponge for harmful stuff. It's a really clear picture of how different chemical solutions are tailored to solve very specific problems in our gut.
Ultimately, all of these agents are just tools, right? They're designed to restore your gut's incredibly delicate chemical balance. They're just powerful examples of applied chemistry at work inside our own bodies. So, we'll leave you with a question. Knowing how this balance works, what's one small change you could make to better support your own gut health?